Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Laszlo and today I'm going to show you how I made the silver cross using a few basic tools. Alright, let's get to it then. I start by placing some casting sand in a baking tray and proceed to chop it up with a plastic ruler to break up the sand and make it more malleable. For this project, I'm using Delft clay casting sand I purchased off of Amazon. I've used it in the past and had reasonably good results with it. Once the sand is all crumbled and loose, I'll take the male half of my mold ring, place it face down on the flat surface of the tray, and start packing it with sand from the back end. I'm going to press it in firmly to make sure it fills out the entire volume of the ring. Once the sand starts flowing over, I take my mallet and start compressing it down further to make sure all the gaps are filled and that the sand settles in nice and firm. After a few taps, I turn the mold ring around and now I have a nice flat casting surface ready to accept my template. Next, I'm going to apply some talc-free baby powder to the casting surface, as well as the wooden cross, which will serve as my template. This will prevent it from sticking to the sand and allow for an easier and smoother release later on. By the way, if you're interested how I made this wooden cross, check out my previous video. A touch more baby powder for the casting surface, and I'm ready to press in my template into the sand. I make sure to press in all corners evenly, while keeping the direction perfectly vertical. The sand gives some resistance, but I just work my way through all the corners until I'm satisfied with the depth all around. Introducing this new volume into the sand tends to displace it, and the surface will rise a little, so I just pat it all back down, making sure everything is still firm and flat. Next, I try to remove the wooden template from the mold, but as you see, the sand is holding it firmly, so I just start tapping away lightly on the opposite corners of the cross to lightly loosen it from the grip of the sand. I carefully remove the wooden template, pulling once again vertically up so that the imprint in the sand does not get deformed or the walls don't collapse in. Some areas that might have come a little loose during the removal process, I gently pat back down with my fingers. The inside of the walls I carefully pat down with a small flathead screwdriver. Alright, now for the fun part. Let's melt some silver. I put my silver in the crucible, and my more observant viewers will notice that I'm actually melting down another silver cross. That's because this is actually my second attempt at this. The first try turned out suboptimal, so I'm just reusing the silver from that failed attempt. I fire up my gas torch and start melting down this hunk of metal. After a couple of minutes, the silver liquefies and it's ready to be cast. I heat it just ever so slightly longer to make sure the molten metal is uniformly hot. And then I commit to the pour. After the silver is out, I heat it a little longer just to make sure it fills in the entire volume in the mold. Then, I just let it cool. On a side note, cooling silver, and I assume other metals too, make a really cool glassy, crinkly sound while cooling. It's strangely soothing to listen to. Okay, once everything is cooled down, I take a look at what I have. I'm pretty happy with that cast. I can work with this. Notice how the face of the cross is sharp with clear lines, where the silver settled in the bottom, whereas the top side is all rounded. I'll be fixing that in the following steps. Next up, I'm going to start on the rough shaping. First, I want to flatten out the backside of the cross and make it of uniform height. To achieve this, I start on the belt sander. I'm simply pressing the back of the cross against the moving sandpaper. The small piece of metal heats up in a matter of seconds from the friction, so I keep dipping it in water to cool it down. After a not inconsiderable amount of sanding, I managed to flatten out the backside of the cross somewhat. It's still not perfect, but it's workable. Next, I want to even out the arms of the cross. During casting, one of the arms came out a little longer than the other, so I'll just even these out and make all four corners proportional. For this, I'm going to turn to my disc sander. Alright, now I can start on the final shaping of the cross. I go back to the belt sander once more briefly to further flatten out the backside of the cross. Before long, however, I'll move on to hand sanding for more control and precision. I monitor for high and low points during sanding and vary the pressure on the cross to make the face and the back parallel. Once both sides are uniformly flat, I go back to the disc sander to grind in the slanted angles at the ends of the cross. In the end, this is what I'm left with. It's starting to take its final shape. Next, I want to separate the upper crossbar, or nameplate, from the main crossbar, or patibulum from Latin. For this, I need to remove the webbing that connects them. I'm going to use a small metal saw for this, and then finish up with a small metal file. Unfortunately, my saw seems to really struggle with this, so it's making me work for it. It's slow, but progress is being made. Once I saw through the webbing, I realized the gap is too small to fit my file, so I need to make another parallel cut right next to the first one. Alright, that's one side done. Now I just repeat the same on the other side as well. Once finished, I just use a small flathead screwdriver to connect the two parallel cuts, creating a single gap, one which is wide enough to accommodate my metal file. Now that that's done, I can finally move on to filing. First, I'm focusing on widening the gap between the nameplate and the main crossbar, making sure the thin slivers of silver connecting them are completely removed, and that both sides are nice and symmetrical. Then, I'm going to focus on the walls of the cross, slowly working my way around the entire thing. The purpose of this is to bring back the sharp outline to both the face and the back of the cross, before ultimately I will round everything off. Once I'm done with the side walls of the cross, I'm going to round down the hard edges by filing them at about a 45-degree angle, just making everything a little less angular. I slowly work my way around the entire cross on both sides until I'm satisfied with the results. I am pretty happy with that, Both front and back are looking nice. Now I can move on to the final step, which is sanding with fine sandpaper to round everything off and soften up those edges even more. In this project, I'm not really looking for a very sophisticated or ornate final finish. I want it to look worn and rustic, to reflect the simplistic technique with which it was created, like something someone could have produced a millennia ago, which they very much could. And now, without further ado, I give you the final product. I'm really happy with the way this cross turned out. It really does make a difference when you're wearing something you made with your own hands. It fills you with a sense of pride and accomplishment. You manipulated and shaped matter to create something meaningful and useful. Thank you guys for joining me for this project. If you enjoyed it or learned something, please consider subscribing for more videos like this one. And I'll see you all in the next one.